Good evening to all our beloved guests. Our PARKonversations webisode tonight is entitled Historical Places and Monuments as Tangible Cultural Heritage. Please stand by. We will begin in 10 minutes.
Ibarin ang takot sa iyong damdamin, ipamalas ang angking galing.
Tumayong mong tapang harapin ng buhay, yakapin ang tagumpay.
Tulungan ang kapwa at bigyang halaga, huwag hatakin ng pababa.
Isipin wag sana ang sarili lang, pakisama't bayanihan.
Subukan nating isulong at ligawan ang
Magandang bukas, ikaw at ako magkasama. magkasama tayo, salubungin ang kinabukasan.
Halina't hawakan ang aking kamay, sabay abutin natin ang tagumpay. Patuloy lang tayo sa pagpapanday, tiwala sa Diyos ang sandat at gabay.
Bukan natin isulong at ligawan ng gandang bukas. Ikaw at ako magkasama tayo, sabungin ang kinabukasan. Ang Pilipino, bilang lahi ko, galing Pilipino sa makabago. Ang 𝘍𝑒𝐤𝑒𝐤𝑚, talito akong puso, maraming Pilipino sa
The last 500 years, Filipinos have fought for freedom, unity, and equality. We have made our mark in many fields, from science and medicine to culture and the arts. We are beacons of creativity, resourcefulness, resiliency, and compassion. In 2021, the Filipino people will join the world in commemorating one of the greatest achievements of mankind, the first circumnavigation of the world. We celebrate this historic achievement by bannering an important message. Over adversity and struggles, we shall triumph, putting humanity first, always.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our 23rd PARKonversations webisode entitled Historical Places and Monuments as Tangible Cultural Heritage. This project is brought to you by the National Parks Development Committee and the Department of Tourism. So before we begin our talk, we would like to share a few reminders to all our viewers. This PARKonversations webisode is streaming live on our Facebook page. So that's facebook.com/npdc.ph, and also on the Facebook page of the National Quincentennial Committee at facebook.com/NQC2021. After this live discussion, it will be made available on demand. So you can always check our Facebook page and rewatch tonight's webisode. We encourage everyone to share tonight's webinar with their friends on social media and use the hashtag #PARKonversations. Second, we'd also love to hear from you and hear your comments and see your reactions during the live discussion. So for the Zoom participants, you can actually ask questions for our speaker by clicking the Q&A button that can be found in the lower portion of your screen. And to our Facebook viewers, you may forward your questions in the comments section of the live video. Of course, we will do our best to answer all your queries in the given time. Lastly, only those who are able to complete the online survey form will receive a copy of their digital certificate. So please watch out for the online survey link, which will be posted in our chat box and the comment section later on. So also please review your entry details, especially your name, before hitting the submit button, because this will be reflected on your digital certificate. So that's it for the reminders. At this point, we would like to formally welcome you to the 23rd webisode of PARKonversations entitled Historical Places and Monuments as Tangible Cultural Heritage. I'm Apelar, the Deputy Executive Director of the National Parks Development Committee, and will be your moderator for this event. So this special webisode was organized by the National Parks Development Committee and the Department of Tourism as an extended celebration of National Heritage Month, and as a way to signal NPDC's month-long celebration of our Independence Day. As we speak of historical places and monuments, we also recognize the value of history and shared stories of our people, which are ingrained in these spaces. So in essence, this webinar is about appreciating and celebrating our cultural spaces, history, communities, and heritage. That's why we are delighted that you're all able to join us this evening for this unique opportunity as we revisit our history through historical places and monuments, our tangible cultural heritage. And tonight we are honored to be graced by the presence of the highly esteemed administrator of Intramuros administration. So to formally introduce our distinguished guest speaker, may I call on the National Parks Development Committee Executive Director Cecil Lorenzana Romero to deliver her introductory speech for our guest speaker. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a virtual round of applause.
Thank you, Jess. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned in the NCCA-approved Philippine Heritage Charter, the Philippines' heritage sites and space and associated environments must be conserved and managed properly as present the country's diverse cultural identities and rich biodiversity, embody the country's multi-layered past, and strengthen the country's sense of nationhood. On this special occasion, we are fortunate that one of the key movers in the development and management of the cultural heritage sector is with us, to help us acquire a better sense of appreciation of our historical places and monuments, and to empower us in moving forward towards the proper conservation and appropriate management of our heritage sites and spaces and their associated environments. With this, I am honored to have the great privilege to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Attorney Guiller B. Asido. Attorney Asido is currently serving as the administrator of the Intramuros Administration, an attached agency to the Philippines Department of Tourism that is responsible for the orderly administration and development of the historic district of Intramuros. His leadership paved the way for urban regeneration of the city of Manila through culture, arts, heritage, and sustainable tourism initiatives. This effort has led to record increases in visitor arrivals income from commercial operations, infrastructure, urban regeneration and planning initiatives, and community stakeholder partnerships. And under his leadership, Intramuros administration was recently named the world's leading tourist attraction for 2020 in the 27th World Travel Awards. He has also been designated by the Secretary of Tourism as chairperson of the DOT Task Force on Domestic Tourism Product Development. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome our renowned speaker for tonight, Attorney Guiller B. Asido. Admin G, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Edie Cecil. Thank you, Jess, for those kind words. Okay. If I may be allowed to share my screen so I can start already. First, I would like to welcome everyone for joining us this Friday night. Friday is supposed to be a time well spent. So I hope that your decision to spend this evening with us will be a fruitful one as well. So the National Parks and Development Committee and the Intramuros administration are solid partners in terms of being sister agencies under the mantle of the Department of Tourism. And we have been working together with the National Parks and Development Committee closely in terms of ensuring that any visitor to Intramuros will also be able to visit Rizal Park, which is to us should be considered as only one circuit. So for tonight, I have been asked by Edie Cecil and DED Jess to speak about historical places and monuments as tangible cultural heritage. For purposes of the presentation tonight and the conversation that we'll have, allow me to spread out the points that I would like to highlight. And in this discussion, I will be observing the following outline. First, I would like to discuss current realities on how we treat places and monuments. Okay? So it is a well-known fact that not just in Intramuros, but in the whole of the Philippines, there are a lot of monuments and significant and historical places. But how do we really treat them right now? And do we treat them with the proper respect that they should be given? After that, I would like to give some context. Okay? When we speak of historical places, when we speak of monuments, what do we really mean in terms of international standards, international setting, and also what do we mean about this? And in the Philippines, does the Philippines have their own definition of monuments as well? And are they consistent with how other countries viewed it as well? And lastly, allow me to have a conversation with you tonight regarding setting values of historical places and monuments and how we should really give them the proper respect in terms of the values that we see them. One other matter is how do we set the narratives in terms of these places and monuments in the same manner that we have been doing so in the Intramuros district for the past 4 years already. And finally, we would like to share with you the story of Intramuros for the past 4 years. So as promised, let me first discuss to you the treatment of places and monuments. 4 years ago, when our team started assuming work in Intramuros, what we initially did is to do a inventory, and then that inventory was actually done on foot. What we did was basically to look at each and every monument, each and every place, and see if the proper narrative, the proper identity, and the proper messaging, and the proper respect towards the symbols of our history and our past are really being given their proper treatment. Lo and behold, we found out that for some monuments that have been there since the Spanish period, and to a certain extent as well, more recent period, we see trend basically that there is really no proper respect. Okay? And we saw also monuments that are being vandalized. Okay? And this is happening not just in the Intramuros before, but also in other places in the country where these monuments are not being given the sense of belonging. Okay? And perhaps this is also the reason why these monuments are being vandalized as well. Okay? So the vandalism reaches from from a simple or scratching of the surfaces to placing their own signatures on the marks, and then even to a certain extent stealing some portions already of these monuments as well. So uh, these monuments have withstood the test of time. Unfortunately, these are built heritages which have, because of the disrespect that we've been seeing, are becoming lost in terms of the appreciation of the current generation as well. Now, to understand the reason why people are doing this, we ask ourselves basically, what do these places and monuments mean really to the people? Why are the people reacting, or why or the community acting towards these monuments in terms of the behavior that they're showing against them? So to do that, we basically had to do a journey in terms of how we can properly give them the sense of value that they deserve. Now, in understanding as well the context of monuments and places, I would like to discuss with you first the matter of really defining terms, because in the definition of terms, you will see there the proper um, language, the proper words that are key to understanding the value of all of these places and monuments. So let me start off with some basic definition of terms, like for example, tangible cultural heritage. There are two frameworks that I had to work through in terms of understanding this term. Okay, I made reference to the UNESCO definitions as well, and our own heritage law, which is Republic Act 166. Now, UNESCO defines tangible cultural heritage basically as referring to physical artifacts produced, maintained, and transmitted intergenerationally. Okay? So it transcends generations, it transcends ordinary boundaries, and it includes as well artistic creations, built heritage such as buildings, monuments, and other physical or tangible products of human creativity that are invested with cultural significance in society. Now, for purposes of this definition, I'll be highlighting certain words that for me would be able to transcend the next points that I would like to highlight. Okay. Now, is this definition of UNESCO consistent with our own definition and understanding of tangible cultural property as well? So, actually, in terms of the law of the National Heritage Law, we see an expansion of the definition. Okay, that tangible cultural property shall refer to cultural property with historical, archival, anthropological, archaeological, artistic, and architectural value. So you see here a significant definition of what that value entails as well. Now, the second part of that definition is also telling, because it tells us basically that these values that we're speaking of in the first part of the definition speaks of whether or not they are of Philippine origin or not, including antiques and natural history specimens, again, with significant value. So you see here the use of two terms, okay, that basically are adopted in terms of tangible cultural heritage. The word significance and the word value. Now, the other definition I would like to start off also is how do we understand historical places? And are current definitions consistent as well with international framework of historical places? Now, there is no exact definition in terms of what historical place is, but if you will look at the UNESCO definition of cultural heritage, it includes places like monuments, architectural works, works of monumental sculpture and paintings, elements or substructures of archaeological nature. So you see here again a more expansive definition of what historical places are. Now, the context of historical places, however, in the current national heritage law, okay, identifies the key components of what historical place is. So we start off with understanding what history is. History shall refer to a written record of past events relating to Philippine history. And when we speak of place, we speak of landmarks as well. So landmarks, as defined in the heritage law, shall refer to sites or structures that are associated with events or achievements significant to Philippine history as declared by the National Historical Institute. There is also reference in the definition pertaining to historical street name. Okay. Now, there is a period in terms of the value of historical street names, and that period is basically at least 50 years and over time has been considered to be historic. Okay. Now, let me call your attention to the definition of landmarks, okay? Because in a sense, it gives to you the value of what this landmark should be. Okay? It should be associated with events or achievements significant to Philippine history. Okay. Now, the other important definition is with respect to historical monuments. So if we if we draw a comparison between the definitions of historical monuments, okay, based on UNESCO guidelines and standards, monuments are referred to as part of the definition already of cultural heritage in Article 1 of the Convention. And earlier I made this definition already that indeed the word monument is already considered to be part of cultural heritage. But in our own heritage law, historical monuments have been defined as structures that honor illustrious persons or commemorate events of historical value, as declared by the National Historical Institute. So here, in the definition of monuments, we are making reference to people, okay? People and events. And those people and the events must have historical value. The value that basically is consistent as well with the definition that I made earlier. Now, having given all of these definitions, let me highlight to you the terms, okay, that transcends basically all of these definitions. Consistently, the definitions made reference to 3 points: value, significance, and history. Okay. Now, what is important about these terms is because they basically give us a framework of how to understand places and monuments as well. So when we speak of value, significance, and history, okay, they are all part of the national cultural heritage because of their exceptional qualities. Now, if you're looking at how to properly frame value, okay, UNESCO considers basically it in the context of outstanding universal value, and as such worthy of special protection against the dangers which increasingly threaten them. So here we are basically seeing the concept already of conservation, protection, and promotion, right, to ensure that the outstanding universal value of these places and these monuments are properly contextualized as well. Now, um, earlier we made reference as well to outstanding universal value. So how is outstanding universal value properly construed? Outstanding universal value basically means cultural, okay, and or natural significance, which is so exceptional as to transcend national boundaries and to be of common importance to for the present and future generations of humanity. So here we're basically saying that in terms of understanding outstanding universal value, it's basically transcending national boundaries, whether those boundaries are territorial and whether as well they transcend as well intergenerational, okay? Because basically you will be able to appreciate them beyond current generations as well. Okay. Now, in terms of defining values of places and monuments, I would like to highlight that three important words as well. Okay? And these three important words are important for us to properly contextualize as well. How do we properly value these places and monuments? So when we speak of monuments and places, we are basically referring to them as symbols as well. Okay? There have been many studies as well that they're um, telling us that monuments are basically symbols, okay, of victorious events, right? And these symbols are actually telling us that in that particular period of time in our history, this was so momentous enough that should become a symbol, okay? A symbol of achievement and a symbol as well of, and to a certain extent, some bad memories as well, right? Now, if you're looking at these places and monuments as symbols, then that is basically a statement as well, okay? Because to a certain extent, and you can see here, this is happening not just in the country, but also more recently in the United States and also in Europe, okay, where some monuments are actually being removed, okay, because the statement, the symbol that these monuments should be reflective of are not anymore synonymous to the values that we are currently adopting. So this basically highlights as well the value of stories, narratives. In every place, in every monument, right, there is a narrative behind it. And the reason why we are perhaps reacting to all of these monuments and places in the manner that we should not be is because the proper narrative is not being told. And the proper narrative defining the values of these places and monuments are not being addressed as well. Okay. Now, symbols basically mean that public monuments do not really emerge out of thin air. Okay. Let me, and on your screen right now as well, is a quotation that public monuments don't emerge out of thin air. Okay? There was a reason behind why these monuments are being placed in that particular location, why historical markers are being placed in a certain facility or in a certain location, right? And they are the products of what we refer to as collective human efforts, often expansive and time consuming, to honor a person, a group of people, or a historical event. Okay. Now, admittedly, however, as well, okay, that there are other monuments, that there are places, okay, that are not consistent with current historical narratives. Okay. Some of these monuments have been erected by dictators. Some of these monuments were erected by private historical societies, okay, based on their own agendas as well. And to some, they were also uh, set up, established by philanthropists and city park planners. Okay? But in all of this basic reason why the monuments exist, you can see that they are all basically based on a person's own narrative. Okay? Now, whether or not they're consistent with history is another story altogether. Okay. Now, let me, when I was doing some research on all of these points, I came across this quotation as well, a particular portion of the book of Brian Ladd, okay, where he spoke of the ghost of Berlin, and that's of course definitely referring to the Berlin Wall. Okay. Ladd wrote that and spoke of monuments and spoke of the wall as the interconnected nature of monuments and national memory. And he also argued that these structures are seen, that is, monuments and architectural relics from the past, treated and remembered, sheds light on a collective identity that's more felt than articulated. But basically, we have to ask as well, based on this particular portion of Lad's book, okay, where do we stand in terms of appreciating monuments in terms of our national collective memory? Are we really telling that these monuments are our collective memory, or are they reflective only of a particular group's memory? So these are questions perhaps that will we should highlight, and we should really be understood in understanding the value of these places and the value of these monuments. Okay. Now, when we speak of uh, monuments, when we speak of landmarks, when we speak of places, okay, we are really referring as well to public sculptures and public art in a sense. And again, I highlight the fact that these monuments and these places and landmarks are really powerful communication devices. And those communication devices reflect not just the values that uh, were really the reason why they were established and placed, okay, during the past generation, but the values as well of the current one, because you can see a community's reaction, okay, based on the values that they are reflecting already as well. Now, allow me therefore to tell you of the story of Intramuros. When we came in 4 years ago, okay, there were a lot of narratives, there were a lot of layers of history. And I remember reading Nick Joaquin's book of Intramuros of Memory when he wrote that when we speak of Intramuros, we are basically referring to different layers of narrative, different layers of our own Intramuros. Okay? There is an Intramuros that we remember when we visited it as a requirement for school. Right? There is also a collective memory of Intramuros that spoke of churches, right? So religion and the value of its placement in our history as well. We also, and there is also a memory, right, of people working there and studying there as well. And of course, definitely the people who have lived there and the people who are still living there. So if you look at all of these narratives, all of these layers of history and memories, where do you try to understand the context of these narratives? Do you see them basically as nostalgia, or do you see really them as a reflection of our own identity as well and the values that we believe in? Okay. So we decided to go beyond the mandate. Intramuros administration has been in existence for the past 41 years. And the mandate is very clear. It's basically to ensure the orderly restoration and development of Intramuros. But we went beyond the mandate in the sense that understanding the reason, and we asked basically the question, why? Okay? Why is this the mandate of the administration? Why do we need to do this? And in a sense, that approach highlighted to us the need to curate the mandate. And curating the mandate means that we have to tell a story why Intramuros is part of our own collective memories. Curating the mandate also meant that we had to brand it properly. Okay? And branding the mandate should be reflective of the past and the present as well. Because the value of Intramuros actually is its own resiliency. It has been resilient enough to stand the tests of epidemics, stood the test of earthquakes, wars, and different settlements altogether in different periods of our history. Okay. Now, when Intramuros administration was established 41 years ago, there have been a lot of plans that were prepared. Actually, there are not less than 4 development plans already prepared. But in all of these development plans that prepared as early as the 1970s, what we decided is to focus first on conservation. And we decided to be consistent with how this is being done, right, by other jurisdictions as well. So we decided to prepare the Intramuros Administration's conservation management policies. This is the first time that actually the administration undertook the exercise of preparing its own conservation management policies. And the policies basically transcends time, transcends boundaries, okay? Because we wanted to focus that this is not just an intramuros of one particular memory. This is not an intramuros of one particular demographics. This is not an intramuros of one particular segment. What we want is that it should be reflective of its history, okay? A history that is basically anchored of us all being part of Intramuros. Now, when we decided to undertake the preparation of the conservation management policies, and this I believe is the first time that a heritage district was able to submit and prepare its own conservation management policies, it was not a quick fix plan. Right? It was not a quick fix document that would eventually just be left in one corner and passed on to the next administration. The value of the conservation management policies lies in the fact that there are, at least on our own determination, more than 40 plus policies that were being proposed to be adopted, okay, by the Board of Administrators of Intramuros. And the reason why these policies and recommendations were proposed is in the context, again, of conservation. But the context of conservation is anchored on the fact of it has identified already its outstanding universal value. Okay. The policies that were submitted and the policies that we are now going through, each and every one, okay, is based on conservation and not just another development plan. Because the value of any development plan should be properly placed in the context as well of being able to conserve identity of the place. Now, that means as well that after we took a different approach in the mandate, we wanted to tell the story of the people and the place. We want to tell the story of how there was suffering, okay? We wanted to tell the story of how people actually lived in Intramuros at that time. We wanted to tell the story as well of the people who are still staying in Intramuros, who actually chose the district to be their home, okay? And try to fix them all together in a sense of giving to you a total package of what Intramuros is, not just in the past, the context of past collective memory, but also in the present one. Now, having said that, and having made some definition of terms and the points that we've raised as well, right? I think in any heritage district, in any matter of places, monuments that should be that have been identified to be part of our history, there are certain lessons that we need to understand, and these lessons should be able to direct proper attention on issues and concerns as well of how the places and the monuments should be properly treated. So that means defining the significance and the values of the places and of the monuments. Okay? On the part of the Intramuros administration, we decided to go through the exercise of the CMP. And that CMP basically already said to us, this is the universal value, this is the significance of Intramuros. Okay? Now, having the significance and having the values as well will be just the first step. The second step would entail determining perspective. Which particular period of our history should Intramuros be reflective of? Should it be consistent with what is intended in the presidential decree of honoring only one particular period, right, during the Spanish period? or should it involve as well and transcend other periods that have happened as well inside the district? We decided that any perspective should be reflective of the total history of the district. And we wanted to tell the story of the district, not just from one particular historical period, but again, everything that has happened in between, okay? And everything that we see should be the next generation of perspectives that we wanted to be adopted as well. Okay? And that means we should be able to tell these perspectives, significance, and values as part of an overall narrative, a narrative of the past, the present, and the future. Okay? So, thank you. And I hope that you were, through this very short presentation, we could have initiated already the conversation that we wanted for tonight. And the intention of the presentation was basically as well to pick our minds in order to initiate that conversation, not just limited to a mere one-side discussion. We wanted, as the program said, a conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation, Admin G. Really, really insightful. I really appreciated the words that you said, and one of the things that really stuck with me was your quote of Nick Joaquin and different layers. Different layers. Wow, I just get that was actually chills for me. So having a very inclusive place, is important. Not just identifying, just being stuck on one period, but being, I guess, available, or being for all people, representing the place for all people and all types. And I think one of the examples of that, I think from watching one of your Intramuros learning sessions, was when you guys restored the Ayuntamiento, which is the Bureau of Treasury, and that site has seen different iterations of the Ayuntamiento. And I remember distinctly when you guys mentioned that during the restoration process, you chose the American period, right? If I'm not mistaken, the architecture of the current Bureau of Treasury, or the dating Ayuntamiento, was actually coming from the American period. So hindi lang siya panahon ng Kastila, kundi panahon din ng Americans, ng mga Amerikano, because that's where we actually have the most information, the blueprints and everything. So that's an example now. So we have a mix of different layers, the American, the Spanish, and today. So even the people that are there today, or even are part of this fabric of history, or this layer that Intramuros has. And that story, as with many other heritage places, that story is still constantly developing. So it's very applicable for us as well in Luneta. But I'd like to turn over the next some questions from one of our viewers. So as a reaction to your presentation, one here we have from Mr. Cipriano Uy. If you will rate on how Filipinos value their heritage nowadays or today, what will it be and why?
It will be difficult to do a rating based on a simple numerical scale, because there are certain biases in terms of each and every scale. So for me, I think rating one particular, or rating in a sense, our values of our own identity can be placed in the better context of understanding what should really be, okay? Or the question really is, what should really be the identity that we want to be reflective of? Is it limiting, as you said, just limiting it only to one particular period? Or is it really all of these periods, and how all of these periods shape our own identity as Filipinos?
I agree with you. That's yeah. There's no right way to rate, no. There's no right way to rate on how we view our heritage. So so going back to the National Cultural Heritage Act, can you provide us some context, how it came about, what was the rationale behind creating, how did it start, what was the impetus or the catalyst for developing that Heritage Act, which you were a part of?
I think the preparation of the heritage law was basically anchored on the fact that there is a constitutional provision. There is a provision in our constitution, the 1987 constitution, that highlights the values of history, the value of culture, and the value of heritage. And these provisions, which are found in the Declaration of State Principles, wanted basically us to enact legislation, direct enactment of legislation that would highlight conservation, highlight protection, and highlight the promotion of Filipino culture and heritage. And again, if you look at the Declaration of State Policy in the law, the National Heritage Law, it speaks basically of enforcing our own identity as Filipinos as well, and how all of these attributes of our past shape our own identity.
Very nice. Thank you for that. Another question we have is from Mr. Junior Inabangan. Good day, Administrator Asido. I am a law student, deeply interested to know about the importance of cultural heritage in our country, and this webinar would help to understand it well. Following the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Torre de Manila in 2017, dismissing the petition filed by the Knights of Rizal for lack of merit, the question is if there would be a call for amendments of the RA number 10066. Would you give us some recommendations on what provisions would be added or modified to prevent this from happening again in the future?
Understanding the case of Knights of Rizal basically and why it was dismissed for lack of merit should be also contextualized in the fact that the reason why the Supreme Court dismissed the petition is the argument that there was really no law on the protection of sight or vista, as we say. Okay. Now, that merit of having no law, okay, is simple enough to be the reason for any court to dismiss one. But the next question that we should ask is this really the proper direction that we wanted to take? Having dismissing a petition on the conservation of particular heritage site on the mere absence of a law. Now that decision as well highlighted the need to fill in that gap, and as the person who wanted to address the question said, the heritage law has been in existence for several years already. And I believe that it's really time to look at it from the, there should be a really diligent review of the heritage law based on current context, with understanding as well that the review should be based on experiences that have happened for the past several years from the beginning, from its implementation. The law itself is not perfect, but this imperfection highlights as well the need already for us to focus on how we should address those imperfections.
Thank you for answering that. Another question we have is on the notion that historical monuments need to be valuable and significant. How can we attract the younger generations to see them as such?
Tell the story. Tell the story. Every monument was erected for a particular purpose. Every monument, and as I've said, was it erected to be a symbol? Was it erected to be a statement? Was it erected to serve one particular interest only? Actually, those are the questions that we should be asking when we view monuments. What was the reason behind these monuments being erected in one particular place? And asking that question will basically lead us to a discussion on periods of our history and whether those periods in our history are reflective already of our current values and deciding as well whether um, they should be reflective of future values as well of Filipinos.
Nice. Do you have any examples from Intramuros that any initiatives or projects that you guys have started to engage the younger generations?
Um, what we did basically is to brand it in a way as part of our campaign. We did a branding campaign. So we place wayfinders in the streets. We place markers as well, identify wayfinders as well that will tell the story of all of these monuments. Because if you just look at the monument without understanding the context of the reason why they were erected as well, it will be difficult. So in Intramuros right now, you will see, aside from the monument itself, a marker that tells you the story behind it. If not for the pandemic, we would have been able to digitally do this as well. So that's basically the context of the answer. Tell the story of the place, tell the story of the monument.
Yes, I must commend you guys for doing a great job on the wayfinding. Intramuros really is a great example of how an agency or a historical heritage place has been able to engage people. And I love the beep cards as well that you guys have been able to do. Intramuros administration beep cards for our commuters.
Yeah. And I think just the value of all of these efforts, the value of the exercise that we did is to highlight as well that we can be innovative in terms of telling the story.
Yes, that is correct. It's really empowering the youth then, to
Correct.
really kasi sila they will be the ones to carry on that.
Yes, yes. It's owning the story. Eh.
Yes.
If people cannot own the story, they will have different reactions, different behaviors in terms of these places and monuments.
Yeah, that is right. That's true. We have another question, Attorney. How do we go about curating the mandate? Are there specific steps that we can follow?
Mm-hmm. Um, when we say curating the mandate, okay, we basically meant it as a design approach in terms of the mandate itself. When we came into Intramuros administration, unfortunately, um, it's not really telling you the complete story of the district. Each and every building, each and every structure there, okay, were based on own people's biases. So while there are implementing rules and regulations that require the observation of certain standards, the standards unfortunately are not reflective really of identity. Okay? For example, in the law itself and in the implementing rules and regulations of Intramuros, there is a requirement that the design aspect of the structure should be reflective of Filipino Spanish architecture during the period of the 1800s. But that's a long period altogether taken. So, which particular style are we speaking of? So these are the questions that we wanted to address. And what is good as well with the Intramuros Administration Conservation Management Plan is that there was already a collective decision that we should not just be basing every decision on rules, laws, right? But we should all really be basing it on identity. So we are now in the process of preparing the Intramuros identity and design guidelines. That is based. That is to ensure consistency. That it's not just about designing one particular window with a particular tweak or a particular twist. Okay, it's really basic. It's basically telling us that the design should be reflective of identity.
Mhm. Wow, what an exciting effort, the initiative that you guys are doing. When can we expect this to be completed?
The CMP is complete. It's actually available in the Intramuros Administration institutional website, so people can download it. But as we always say, it's not a perfect document. No CMP is perfect, because for us, a CMP should be a living document. It should be able to be continually reviewed. It should be continuously monitored, okay, to reflect again values, not just of the uh, our current generation, but of succeeding generations as well. So it should not be bound on a particular time, and definitely it should not just be in one particular corner of our office.
Exactly. I think people need to realize it's, they're not static, as you mentioned. These are
Yes.
dynamic. It's constantly changing. The conversation is still happening,
Yes.
So, and our identity as Filipinos are,
Mm.
it's still an ongoing.
Evolving. Yes. And that is the value of the district. It was really a district of resiliency.
Mhm. So, related to resiliency, we have another question here
Mhm.
about being the Philippines being a disaster-prone country.
Mhm.
May we know your thoughts on incorporating disaster risk management in preserving our historical places and monuments as part of resiliency?
It should really be integrated, but it should be integrated in one particular document as well. Um, in our own experience, based on our own experience, okay, this was one of the policy recommendations in the CMP, that we properly do a disaster framework. And the intention of having these plans was based on ensuring that identity as well is properly conserved and protected. Because based on experiences in other countries as well, when a disaster strikes, okay, whether it be an earthquake, natural or man-made disaster, people are always looking for, after the fact of the disaster, a place where they would have that sense of belonging, a place where they will be asking for affirmation of their own identity as well.
Mhm.
And where do you see that? Okay? Where do you see that? It should be in the heritage areas. It should be in the monuments. It should be in the public spaces that we value. So any disaster planning framework should be anchored on not just a stand-alone document, but actually part of the overall document on ensuring conservation of heritage site.
I think it's also important to engage the public, no,
Correct.
the
Correct.
community, kung saan yung mga
Yes.
heritage places na yun, and what that means to them.
Correct. Because this is our own experience as well, based on what has happened for the past years of our stay in Intramuros. Before we decided to implement policies and programs, there was a collective decision. Every decision, every policy, every rule and regulation should pass through public consultation. And the consultation should not just be your usual consultation of an agency of government presenting. Okay? It should really be an effort where the stakeholders of the community, whether they be internal or external stakeholders, are not just consulted, but actually engaged. And engagement requires patience. Engagement requires debate. Okay? So it should really be an approach based on active engagement.
Very true. Great answer, attorney. And of course, we have another question here from Mr. Roberto Galang. Are there plans to convert the Intramuros Golf Course into a park that is more accessible to the people?
Let me respond to the question um, from two approaches. One is a personal approach. Okay? My personal approach, and not really reflective yet of their agency, because this has yet to be discussed by management, my personal affirmation is that really should be a public space. And when I say a public space, that it should really be used um, for not just one particular group, but really for to be enjoyed by all, to be enjoyed by everyone. Okay? History tells us that that particular space, the areas occupied by the golf course, okay, was actually built only during the American period. But aside from it being a golf course, it was actually a military parade ground. It was actually a space where people can actually enjoy, right? And let us remember as well that these are the last remaining greens of Metro of Manila. So collectively, a policy decision really has to be reached already on what should be the future of that space.
So we have something to look forward to, hopefully.
Mhm.
Um, that's definitely something we all desire, to have more public spaces, more parks for the public. Of course, that's part of our mandate as well at NPDC. So if it become a park, we would be more than happy for it to materialize.
Yes. Mm.
Okay, we have another question here. Okay, this is from an anonymous attendee. So about during Christmas season, how historical monuments in some towns and plazas are being covered by certain materials to give way to Christmas nativity scenes, even for just a short amount of time. Is this even allowed? If not, what should be done to prevent LGUs from doing this?
Unfortunately, and let us be uh, honest about it, um, it may be government itself that is doing it. Okay. But perhaps again, let me go back to the premise that the reason why this is being done is because people don't understand the value of why these monuments are there as well. So understanding the value also will allow us to properly contextualize it as part of the narrative. So whether it be a government program, whether it be a Christmas program, you can actually contextualize the space, okay? If you know the value of it and include it in the narrative that you want it to be. So whether it be Christmas, whether it be another season, it's actually a creative challenge on how do you can you include this narrative, how do you include the value in the programs that you're implementing.
That's right. That answers your question, anonymous attendee.
Mhm.
So we have another question from another anonymous attendee. How can we encourage provinces to empower the importance of our landmarks
Mhm.
as part of history heritage
Mhm.
assets as an opportunity for tourism attraction? So empowering the provinces,
Mhm.
importance of our
Yeah.
landmark.
Mhm. um I think there are several ways of doing it. From an institutional point, from an institutional perspective, that means there should really be people located in the proper offices to do that. Unfortunately, and this is an admitted fact, um, there are no cultural officers, okay, in every municipality, city, or in every province. Okay? This is actually part of the ambit of tourism. But that's only one part. That's only one aspect. Okay? Designating it as a destination should also be based on understanding, again, the why of the monument and the space. So that means involvement of having people actually institutionalize at those different levels of government. But aside from that as well, and this is an encouraged reading, If you read Chapter 7 of the Philippine Development Plan of the current administration, there's a separate chapter altogether on culture. But aside from speaking of culture, it spoke of values. When we came in 4 years ago, we decided to adopt that particular chapter as the policy framework of our programs and policies. And there were two important Filipino values that were highlighted: malasakit, okay, and being creative. So, protection and conservation of history, heritage, culture can actually be a creative process as well. And that will ensure engagement, active engagement.
Okay, very good. And of course, as a plug to and an answer to that, we have one of our comments in the Facebook section. So if you want to learn more about how IA, or Intramuros Administration, has rebranded the district into a creative urban heritage by engaging the community, stakeholders, and the younger generation, tomorrow they also have an Intramuros learning session at 3 p.m. So sa ating mga viewers, if you want to learn more, please watch tomorrow's um, IA's learning session. Okay, thank you for that. We do have another question from Mr. Philip Paraan. This is regarding how Intramuros CMP addresses the community or the informal settlers within the district, and are they considered part of the identity of Intramuros? How are they mobilized to help the development and conservation of Intramuros? And are you planning to still relocate them outside of the
Mhm.
district?
Um, when we came in again 4 years ago, we decided that this really should be properly addressed already. And addressing it means engagement with the informal settlers. Let's admit it, this has been a running problem for the past decades already. And actually, this came into mind immediately after um, s- when Spain left, when the American forces came in. And a lot of these houses, the old heritage houses, and more manifest after the Second World War, became areas for informal settlement. Now, there are still informal settlers in Intramuros, but we consider them as part of the community. And this is this we repeatedly said. Okay? Engagement with the community means engagement not just with the formal but also the informal settlers. Because if they can understand value, if they can understand significance, okay, there may be a collective decision already as well for them to move forward from their current condition. Okay? Because what is contributing to the to the perception that they are not really should really not be there is their blighted is the condition, is the blightedness of the areas. So there should be a proper approach. And to us, the approach was to undertake a socialized housing program. We are now undertaking this with the Socialized Housing Finance Corporation to ensure that it is not just a program of removing or relocating informal settlers. It should be a program that guarantees respect for their rights. It should be a program that guarantee as well that they are part of the process and the decision-making process of looking at other places. And that is the best approach for us because many of these people have been staying in the district, okay, even before Intramuros administration was created. So, in a sense, there is that sense of belonging. What we want is for that sense of belonging to be converted to a sense of value, understanding values, understanding significance.
Nice. And unfortunately, this we have limited time. So to all our viewers, I'm sorry we don't have enough time to accommodate your questions, but we will do our best to still answer them, at least offline. Admin G, can you share with us, I guess, your last concluding words to our viewers? Any last words that you'd like to say, or encouragements to take part in the preservation of our cultural heritage?
Thank you first, Edie, Cecil, and Jess, for inviting us to be part of the conversation for tonight. There is value in terms of the topic, because not only is it we are observing a significant period in our history, but also the fact that we are also going through a significant in our own time. So perhaps the last words would be on to be part of the story. Okay? People should not limit themselves to just being visitors. People should actually be part of the collective discussion, the part of the collective preparation of those stories. And that will ensure conservation and protection.
A great message, Attorney. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, for your wisdom, your sharing us with your experiences. Really an informative and meaningful talk. And we hope this webisode was really able to increase the audience's awareness regarding the significance and value of our historical places and monuments. And, may we be encouraged to actively participate, like as you mentioned, to be part of the story in preserving and safeguarding and protecting our heritage. So at this point, we are going to award a certificate of appreciation to Attorney Guiller Asido. We'll flash it on the screen. All right. There we go. Again, we'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude, Admin G. Thank you very much for being, for taking the time to be with us tonight. We know how busy you are. So maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din, and thank you again for spending this evening with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon. And of course, we'd like to thank all our viewers on Zoom and Facebook Live for joining us and helping make this PARKonversations webisode a success. Please remember to check your Zoom chat box and Facebook Live comment section to access our online survey form, which will help us at NPDC improve the quality of our shows and projects. So if you have some time, please fill out our survey. A gentle reminder that only those who will be able to complete the online survey will receive a copy of their digital certificate. And if you enjoyed tonight's PARKonversations, do follow us on our social media accounts to stay updated with other fun events we have lined up for this month. For Facebook, that's facebook.com/npdc.ph or instagram.com/npdc.ph. And Twitter, it's twitter.com/npdc_ph. So again, thank you everyone, and wishing you all a great evening. Bye, until next time.